Game week 11 might go down as the worst game week in the history of FPL, but today we are here to talk about game week 12. It is my team selection. We have had European fixtures, so today I'm going to talk you through my potential transfers this week, the key talking points, a lot of injuries to cover during this video as well, to the likes of Dan Burn, any updates we have on the likes of Bukayo Saka and James Maddison as well. So a lot to cover. We're going to look at my team, my potential transfers, and my game week 12 team selection. So diving straight in, just before we do, I'm not going to ask you to do the usual like and subscribe on this video. Some of you may have seen my post on Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube community over the past couple of days. Those of you who haven't, it's up on screen now. During the month of December, I will be taking the leap to making FPL content as my full-time job. I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you to every single one of you watching this video. Whether you've watched one video and this is your first time, whether you've watched 10, 100, 500, or all single ones of my videos, thank you so much. This would not be possible without you. You have literally made a dream come true for me. I cannot wait for December to come around. You can put more content out for you. You can put more effort and time into it to hopefully making it more entertaining, more useful, whatever you view my content for. Just want to use this opportunity to say a massive, massive thank you. But not everything is rosy in the land of FPL, despite me having great news or great news for me to share with you. Game week 11 was probably the worst game week of FPL I have ever seen. I got 27 points. My safety score was 32, so I was 5 points away from getting a flat grey arrow or a small green arrow. I dropped from 300k down to 360k. Now, to be honest, that rank drop is not the end of the world. It was a pretty rubbish game week for any of you. Now, there will be some of you watching who got less than 20 points, but generally, it could be a lot worse. I say that because if I'd have got 30 or 40 points, but everyone else got 70, it would have had a bigger impact on my rank. At least we're all in this together. So there was only 2 returns for me. We had the assist for Mitoma and the goal for Jared Bowen. The rest of it was pretty awful. Of course, Erling Haaland getting injured going off at halftime. He is, of course, back. Mo Salah and Liverpool only scoring once against Luton. We saw Tsimikas bench. We saw Cash go off early. It was a pretty awful game week all around. So today we're going to look at how we're going to make it better going into game week 12. So I didn't have a clear route of what transfer I wanted to make this week until we saw Dan Burn go off injured in the Arsenal-Newcastle game. And then, of course, we've heard that he's going to be out for the rest of the calendar year until at least probably January. So a couple of months on the sideline. So selling Dan Burn is a priority for me. There are a couple of transfers I want to make elsewhere in my team. Then I need a little bit more money than I have at the moment. Now, I've got 1.6 million in the bank and I've got 2 transfers, but I do need a little bit more money for the potential transfers in future weeks, which we will talk about in the future planning part of this video at the end. But it does mean that I'm likely to come down from Dan Burn. There are 3 real options for me. The 4.2 option is Harry Maguire. Of course, Manchester United have been, not great defensively, as we saw again in the Champions League, but they did keep a clean sheet in game week 11. 4.2 million. The key thing for me again is game week 13 next week, which is an absolutely awful week for our defenses. If you haven't looked at your defense for next week, go and check it out because there are so many matchups which are bad for fixtures next week. And then Harry Maguire goes away to Everton. Now, Everton have been okay, but it's a decent enough fixture that week. The other option I could go is just go to Lascelles. Now, the issue with him is we don't have an update on Botman. So if I go to Lascelles, I'm not going to do it until at least after the Newcastle press conference on Friday afternoon to hopefully get an update from Eddie Howe on how long Botman's going to be out. We thought he'd be back in game week 9 and then he got pushed back and now they don't really know what the issue is with him. So I do think he's probably the best option, and looking at all the options I can get at 4.2 or less, he plays for by far the best defence. Even with the other injuries they got, I still think Newcastle is the best defence out of all the cheap options. The issue is in game week 13, the difficult game week defensively, he does have Chelsea at home, so I don't really fix an issue that week. The other option I have is just take all the money out and go to Bulldog. He is playing for Sheffield United, who are statistically the worst defence in the league so far this season. However, game week 13, they do have Bournemouth at home, and it leaves me with a lot of flexibility with my other transfer plans. So that is one transfer. I'm pretty certain that I will sell Dan Burn this week. It will be for one of those defenders that we just discussed. But then it's what I do with the other move. Now, freeing up that little bit of money allows me to bring in Bukayo Saka for any 3 of the midfielders that I'm willing to sell. Diaby, Bowen and Mitoma. The issue is they all have really good home fixtures this week, right? Sheffield United at home, Fulham and Nottingham Forest at home for all three of them. Mitoma is probably the weakest asset, but he has by far, I think, the easiest fixture at home to Sheffield United. He did just play 90 minutes in Europe, but I can't sell Mitoma before that fixture. Diaby has Fulham at home. Now, Forest were pretty good against Aston Villa last week, but Aston Villa at home tend to do pretty well. So I don't massively want to sell him, but I do, of course, have Matty Cash and I do, of course, have Ollie Watkins in my team. So if Aston Villa do well, I still have a decent bit of an investment. The other one is Jared Bowen. Now, I was going to sell Bowen, but the more I look at it, those long-term West Ham fixtures mean I don't really want to sell him either. So we did see, of course, Bukayo Saka go off injured in the Champions League. Now, we've seen Bukayo Saka go off injured and return to play very few days later so many times this season. So I fully expect Saka to come back in game week 12 and start against Burnley. But of course, I would need to wait for the Arsenal press conference from Arteta on Friday to check that's the case. But even if that is the case and he says he's fine and he's going to be available for the game, I'm not really sure I want to sell any of my midfielders this week to go and buy him, particularly with Odegaard being out and Nketiah might be out as well. There are enough injuries in that attack, which does concern me a little bit. The other thing I could do, now, Matty Cash is on the bench for Aston Villa in their European game tonight, so we know he's back available. He's been pictured in training. Absolutely fine. However, they've not kept many clean sheets recently. The attacking returns for Cash aren't there. And this downgrade actually leaves me enough money in the bank to do Cash up to Kieran Trippier. So that 0.4 that I free up by selling Dan Burn to Harry Maguire is 0.4 or 0.6 to Lascelles or cheaper for Bulldog. It leaves me exactly the amount of money to go and buy Kieran Trippier into my team. And I could just get rid of all the Trippier pain that I'm feeling every single week when he scores points and I don't own him. So looking at what this means for my lineup. So in goal, we're going to start with Areola. Nottingham Forest at home. I don't have a choice now because Turner has lost his place in the Forest goal. I thought it would happen at some point. I did not expect it to happen this soon, if I'm really honest. He wasn't great in the match in game week 10 though, so it wasn't that much of a surprise it did happen when it did. Areola has been pretty disappointing, but it's a decent enough fixture. I'm not worried about my goalkeeper situation at the moment. He's not the best, but there's no one massively I want to sell him to, especially for an extra transfer, which are so precious in my team at the moment. Moving into defence, so here is where I do plan on making a transfer. As I said, I do expect to sell Dan Burn, and I think it will be for Lascelles. I look at it and I think I could go Manchester United, I could go Sheffield United, or I could go for a Newcastle defender. Of course, as I said, I will wait for the press conference to hopefully hear an update on Botman. Ideally, Botman is out until Christmas time because game week 18 is the blank game week for Manchester City and Brentford. And in that week, Newcastle have Luton. So if Lascelles is available to play, he'd be a massive, massive boost in that blank game week in game week 18. So hopefully we'll hear an update on Botman. It does mean that I'm likely to bench Tsimikas. Tsimikas started in Europe for Liverpool. He got subbed off at half-time, having been the one who made the mistake for the first Toulouse goal. So I'm not necessarily certain he's going to start, and I'd rather go with the other three options that I've got. And of course, Taylor then sits last on my bench. Then elsewhere into my midfield is the same midfield five. I don't plan on doing either the Trippier or the Bukayo Saka transfer. I want to see with Newcastle what's going to happen, who's going to play at left back, who's going to play at right back, because people are straight away about Livramento and Lewis Hall. But with the amount of fixtures Newcastle have, I'm not confident I want to play both. But I do think that Livramento will play a decent amount of minutes, which might put Trippier at left back. And I want to see what this does to his potential output. Now, I don't want to go for Bukayo Saka because I don't want to sell one of my midfielders, and I'm not certain he's going to be 100% fit. And without the likes of Odegaard and Nketiah, Gabriel Jesus, I think Arsenal are a worse side. So Diaby, Mitoma and Bowen all stay. Salah and Heung-min Son, of course, are in there to complete my midfield. I'm pretty happy with my midfield this week. And up front is Erling Haaland and it is Ollie Watkins. Ollie Watkins I still really like as an option. A few people are considering selling, but the fixtures are still there. And I think Villa are still going to score a lot of goals, particularly at home like they are this week. In terms of captaincy, I think it's pretty open this week. It could go to, in theory, any of my 7 attackers. I mean, I'm not going to captain Mitoma. It wouldn't be Diaby because I'd go Watkins over him. In theory, the others could all get it. The chances are it will end up on Salah. Not massively pleased with how he's performed in terms of his positioning over the past couple of games. However, he is on penalties. He is playing a home fixture against Brentford, who particularly are lacking fullbacks at the moment. Of course, we saw Rico Henry get injured earlier on in the season, and then their replacements for him are also unlikely to be fit for this game at the weekend. I do fancy Ollie Watkins as a bit of a differential punt. He's going to get my vice captain at the moment, but Mo Salah to be my captain. So, looking at this sort of final ad-lib section of this video where I just show you what my team is likely to look like going into future weeks and potentially why I'm making some of the transfers that I want. So as I say, my plan this week, not confirmed, is to do Dan Burn to Lascelles as long as we get a decent news on Botman in the press conference on Friday that he's going to be out for enough time that it makes Lascelles a decent option. This means that Tsimikas is going to drop to the bench. It is likely to be with Mo Salah as my captain and then probably Ollie Watkins ending up being my vice captain. I like that fixture a lot. Going into game week 13. So this is the issue we have. Defensively, I'd probably play Gabriel. Fingers crossed he keeps his plays. I am a little bit concerned, but he is their second best centre-back behind Saliba. It's then likely to be Lascelles at home to Chelsea, which is okay. And then it is Cash away at Spurs. There aren't loads of fixtures that I really want. It's probably not worth a transfer. If I don't decide to go and buy Bukayo Saka this week, though, I will end up buying Kieran Trippier. So in game week 13, I will have to make the choice. I'll give myself one more week to decide on Bukayo Saka or Kieran Trippier, and then I'll have to make a decision. Personally, I think my defence is weaker than my midfield. So Matty Cash out and Kieran Trippier in is a transfer that I really like. And this is probably where I'd go going into game week 13. The only issue that this leaves me going into game week 14 is that I plan on bringing in Brian Mbeumo in place of Mitoma. So Mitoma in out and Mbeumo in does leave me a little bit short in the bank of the money that I would have to spend here. So there are plenty of other places that I could potentially make a transfer. DRB being the particular one that I would probably look at, and it is Cole Palmer. I think Cole Palmer, as a Chelsea fan, is a really nice asset. In game week 14, he has Brighton at home, who are conceding goals at the moment. Then it's United away, and then it's a nice run of fixtures. We're also likely to have Nkunku back, which is only going to boost Chelsea's attacking threat. So I think that looks pretty nice. It gives me Mbeumo against Luton, gives me Palmer at home to Brighton, and it gets me Kieran Trippier in. Then, going into game week 15, I'll have enough money in the bank when Jared Bowen goes away to Spurs to go and bring in Bukayo Saka. So the moral of the story is that who has Luton, of course, that week. The moral of the story is I have to choose who I want to buy in game week 13 between Trippier and Saka. The other one has to wait to game week 15. At the moment, I think my midfield is stronger than my defence, so bringing in Kieran Trippier is a better plan than bringing in Bukayo Saka. It is a little bit close. It only leaves me 0.1 in the bank, but Cole Palmer has already risen. I think I'm going to be okay with the value that I've got in my team. So this is my game week 12 lineup. I plan to do Burn down to Lascelles as my transfer this week, roll my other transfer going into game week 13 and get a bit more of a look at Arsenal, where Bukayo Saka is lining up, a few of their injuries, or is it going to be Trippier that comes in for me over the international break? And how is he going to fit when he goes in at left back? So that is the video. That is my plan, transfers, and my team selection for game week 12. Thank you all. As I said at the beginning, the support you have given me on this channel is crazy. I can never have dreamt it getting this far. And to think that in a month's time, I'll be spending my days making content for you as good as possible and as much as possible as well. This is to each and every one of you. Thank you so much. Have a lovely weekend if I don't see you on my deadline stream. And I'll be back again very soon.